Okay, so it looks like I am now live. And really, this is just so that I can help produce a video. There's a lot of stuff I need to show. So it's easier for me to do this on Google Hangouts and then put a video together later and edit it in. So I think that's the reason why I'm doing this, because when I do it through Premiere Pro, it could take me 2 or 3 days to do the same stuff that I could do on a Hangout now. Right, okay. So I'm just going to discuss a few bits and bobs, and then I'll probably use that to produce the video. Right, okay, where are we? I'll just make sure I'm sharing screens, and then there we go. It looks like I'm sharing screens, right? Okay, here we go. Pop that up there. Wait. Don't need that. Don't need that. And I am looking for. Let's start over here. Okay, so this is the infamous image that I took from Barrow-in-Furness. As you can see, you're looking at the peninsula of Blackpool. Now, we have a lot of things that are going on in this image, and a lot of things that I've been able to work out. Like, for instance, how come you can see part of the illuminations here, part of the illuminations here, part of the illuminations here, but yet you don't see any of the illuminations in this area here, because it would look kind of odd. And then also we have things like the tower. This is also the cenotaph. This here is the cenotaph. This here is the Metropole Hotel, the corner of it, and the rest of the Metropole Hotel is here. And also way over in this corner, which is ultimately the entire reason why I'm doing this Hangout, is the mirror ball. And as I say, the ballers hate this that you see in the mirror ball. But it's not the first time I've seen it. This was from 19 miles away from Barrow. And this image it's a beautifully clear image. And we also have another image that was taken in April from Hoylake. So from the opposite side, looking north to south, looking at 29 miles roughly. There's Blackpool Tower, there's the big one, and yet again, here we have the mirror ball. So from the two locations, basically looking at this entire peninsula, there's the mirror ball here, and Hoylake is over here. So when we looked from there to there, we saw this mirror ball here. And when I looked from here across here, we saw this image here with the mirror ball here. So basically, I'm going to discuss the reasons why we didn't see the illuminations in this area here, and we only saw a small portion of it here, a small portion of it here, and yet we're seeing the rest of it here, and also on a different image actually, one that I captured the full peninsula on. You can see all the illuminations, all the lights, all coming down here, beautifully lit up, very prominent, but you see the same things, you know, the ice blast, the big one, the tower. So we're seeing all the illuminations here. We're not seeing any illuminations here, and people say, "Oh, why can't you see why can't you see the illuminations? Yeah, what's going on?" Oh. And it really wanks me off, because there is an explanation, and I'm going to get to that now. So this is what I have found, and it's all to do with your line of sight. Now I've put a lot of there's a lot of red lines on here, and I'm going to go through individually exactly what's going on here. Now here we have the Metropole Hotel. It is well, first of all, the illuminations. These are the illuminations. They follow the road all the way along. So the illuminations come all the way along the roadside here, and they come all the way along to here, and then they start to diverge. They go around and behind the Metropole Hotel. They carry on along the roadside, and then they come all the way down here and along, and it sticks to the roadside. Now, there's some important things that you need to realize when we're discussing all this. The first thing is the line of sight. Now, I've put the obstructions that are in the way. So when I'm looking at sea level across from 19 miles away, the Metropole Hotel, which is here, is blocking off all this area here, so that you cannot see any illuminations that would be going there, because the size of this hotel, which is, I've got an image of that actually, which is here. This is the Metropole Hotel. The size of this would block you from seeing any of the illuminations. Now, I know that on the image I've actually caught the Metropole, and I can prove that. If you look at this turret-shaped design of the Metropole on the corners, you can see how the lights come around and curl. Now, on the image, which is here, if I scroll in, and I'll show you, can you see the turret shape lights that are going around the same as here? So there's no doubt that we're looking at the same thing. I can also triangulate it, and I have done that, so that's not an issue. That's not contentious. This is the Metropole Hotel. There is no denying it at all. It's in exactly the same location where you'd expect it to be in relation to the tower and the ice blast and the big one, and you can triangulate it, and you can actually know that this is the Metropole, so that's beyond doubt. This here is also the Cenotaph, and we have luckily got an image of the Cenotaph too, which is here. So this is the Cenotaph, and if you look at these particular lights that are on this stanchion here, they project lights onto this, and it lights up, and it has a little bit of a show. Now, you bear in mind that these images were taken on the day that the illuminations were opened, which was the 1st of September. So all these lights would have been working. This would have been lit up again pretty brightly. And in relation to where it is on the map, what we have is we have the Metropole here, and then we have a small gap here, which leads us to the Cenotaph, which is here. So if I go back onto here, you'll see, and I go to the image itself over here, you see there's the Metropole and there's the Cenotaph. Now then, as I'm saying, you're not seeing anything, no illuminations here, but we're seeing illuminations here. We're not seeing any illuminations here, right up to just past the tower in the line of sight. So a lot of you have been saying, well, why aren't you seeing that? And the reason is pretty obvious. Firstly, the elevation here on this North Pier is 11 meters. So the height of the pier is at 11 meters above sea level. When we scroll out, you will see that this pier here and this pier here create a block so that you cannot see from this line here to this line here. It is creating a blockage that goes across this peninsula here, because these are in the way of your line of sight. However, we do have a very small window where we do see some illuminations on this image here, and that is here. And it bugged me as to why we were seeing this. So it was only when I went to Google Earth and I plotted this in, and I looked at the elevation at the roadside here, which was at 10 meters, right? And when I go further along, the elevation drops to 8 meters, 7 meters, 7 meters. But in this location, you know, just basically outside Blackpool Tower, but for the line of sight, it would place it to the right-hand side of Blackpool Tower. The elevation was at 10 meters. So the roadside here is at 10 meters, and this deck here is at 11 meters. Now, there's not much on this deck, and it's just a walkway. Some of the other piers have more attractions that go across it, but this one's pretty sparse and bare. Now, here, where the arcade is, we have an elevation of 18 meters. So way above the elevation of 13, 14 meters of the roadside here. So this would definitely block any illuminations here. But at this small little junction here, where the elevation is 10 meters there, and the elevation of the actual pier here is 11 meters, that's only 1 meter difference. So then I thought, well, do you know what? I need to drive down here and I need to have a look and see how high these illuminations actually, how high they actually go. So here we are. So this is me, and I went along, and this is a full video. But as you can see, the roadside is here, and this is how generally the attractions look. And they are situated around about 4 to 5 meters above the roadside. Some of them are very small lights here. You know, you wouldn't expect to see an awful lot of them. But some of these bigger ones here do create quite a light show. These ones won't show very much because the LEDs, very low light emitting. But these ones, again, won't show much. But these ones, these big ones, these do. And these ones are around about 4 meters up. So going back to the Google Earth, these are raised up to 4 meters above this elevation here. So the elevation here is at 10 meters. So that would mean that would put the elevation of the actual illuminations at 14 meters. And fortunately, we can see across because this is only 11 meters of obstruction. That's why we were able to see on this image here a small chink in the armor, a small chink where the piers allowed us to see those illuminations here. And then when we go further along, and the pier here is still at 11 meters here, but then we look at the roadside, say here, and the elevation is at 8 meters. You know, it's very close as to what you could and couldn't see, basically. And I'm saying that these piers here and this pier here are blocking out everything that you can, all the illuminations that you would expect to see down here. We've got an elevation of 8 meters here, 7 meters, 7 meters. And we know these piers are at 11 meters. So when we scroll into Central Pier, we've also got all this blockage that's going on here. We're looking at 16 meters of blockage, 15 meters, 17 meters. The roadside is at 8 meters. We're not going to see any of the illuminations because the pier is blocking it out, which is consistent with why we're not seeing anything along here. Here is big wheel. I know you can't really see it very well, but I do have another image that I've been given permission to use. And this was taken from the same location. It's not a very good image. It was a guy called Stephen Sheetley, and he took this image. It would appear at dusk. Here we have Blackpool Tower, here we have the wheel, and here we have the big one. So we know that this is where it is in the location. We also know that it triangulates perfectly anyway. So there's no doubt that this actually is the big wheel. So we know where we're at here. We're not seeing any illuminations because it's just completely blocked. So the only time we get a break in the illuminations is way up here, which is to the, it's a fair way along, but before you get to the start of the Blackpool Pleasure Beach, because here we have the ice blast, here we have the White Tower, part of the lower part of the big one, the other part of the big one. So we've got some illuminations going on here. So when I go back to my Google Earth and I scroll in, I notice that there's a break. There's a break where you've got a clear line of sight, which is here. This is a clear line of sight from where I took the image. There's no pier that's blocking it. So you're looking just across water between here and here, which is just before you come to the start of the fun fair, where we've got the ice blast and the White Tower that are all here. There's the ice blast, there's the White Tower, but we have all this land here that is unobstructed view. So when the illuminations were going on here, we were able to see it because there was nothing blocking it. There was nothing blocking us allowing to see this small section of illuminations. And then it stops, then we can't see anything. Again, something got in the way. And the something that got in the way was this pier here. Again, this pier blocked from here to here. All this, basically the entire width of the pleasure beach. Now then, I hope I've saved this image. I hope I've got this image up. Where is it? No, sorry, it looks like I'm going to have to scroll in to show you this next part. But you'll be asking, well, why, when you say that you're seeing all of the big one, right, which we are, there's the big one, there's the rest of the big one where it curls around and starts turning back on itself, and then we get this blockage here and we're not seeing anything and it's blocked. So I went to the Google Earth again, and what do we have? We have a 22 meter in elevation sand castle, which is an amusement. It's where you go swimming, and it's got all kinds of water slides and everything in its parts. Directly in the line of sight, conveniently, as you can see, this is where the big one turns around and goes back on itself. And this lower part of the structure here is directly in the line of sight of the sandcastle. Now, if I scroll in, you should be able to see what I mean by that when I say that it gets in the way. Right, I'm just going to go to 10 meters and then have a look up. Okay. When it decides to work properly. So I'm just going to scroll across here, get myself in my line of sight. And as you can see, you see the big one going up, it comes down. And then here you have the obstruction, which is the sandcastle. And then you see the backside of the big one as it rises back up again and turns back on itself. Now, if we look on the image, it's exactly what you see. The big one goes up, down, the sandcastle gets in the way. Then the light source here is the backside of the illumination of the big one, and it turns back on itself and goes back, just as you see here. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. That's blocking the lower part of the big one. Now, lastly, which is the contentious part, and which is why I did this video yesterday, was the mirror ball and the line of sight for the mirror ball. Now, the line of sight for the mirror ball is unobstructed. Again, there's no piers in the way. The line of sight for it takes you directly across the water, and it sits proudly where I showed you yesterday on yesterday's video. Where is it? Here we go. So if we go across and we scroll into this area here, you can see the mirror ball here. There it is. So we're seeing the mirror ball from 19 miles away. And the entire peninsula here, I hope I've explained as to why you don't see the illuminations, because of the obstruction points. Here we have the sandcastle, which is getting in the way of this part of the big one. Here we have a break in the line of sight between the central pier and the south pier, which is on here. Here's the break between the two, between that line of sight and this line of sight. This was clear, so we could see that. That's why we was able to capture this part of the illuminations here. All this was blocked out because of the two piers and the fact that the elevation of the topography of the land is way lower than the height of the actual piers. The piers are at 11 meters. We know the roadside is going down to 7, 6, 8 meters. At this part here, right outside the tower, we know that it was at 10 meters in height. So including the illumination height would have propelled it higher than the actual North Pier, which would have been coming out here and blocking it. Here we have the Metropole Hotel, the corner, the turret. Here we have the cenotaph. And then we have the rest of the illuminations that start off going back to Bisbam. If I go back to the reason why you can see them, if we come along here on the topography of the land here and we look at this, there's no obstructions in the way at all. There is nothing blocking, getting in the way of you seeing all this land here. And that's why we was able to see all the illuminations here. It's only when you get this pier coming out of the way, this pier jutting out, and this pier jutting out, and the sandcastle getting in the way, that it blocks everything that you're seeing, apart from the two locations here and here, where we were just able to, we were just able to peer through and see the illuminations. And lastly, I just wanted to show you this here. So here's a line of sight for all the attractions and things that I pointed out. Here we have the line of sight for the tower. Here we have the line of sight for the cenotaph. The line of sight on this one here is for the ice blast. Line of sight here is for the ice tower, sorry, the white tower. Line of sight here is for the big one. And this line of sight, which is just there, is for the mirror ball. And when I roll them down on it, you can see perfectly. So we know that everything, first that I pointed out, line of sight for the big one is now, line of sight for this is for the ice blast is right on it, line of sight for the cenotaph is right on it, and the line of sight for the mirror ball is absolutely perfect. Spot on. There's not a pixel of difference. Everything matches up beautifully. So we know we're seeing the mirror ball. So not only have we seen it from, which was at 19 miles, and this was also contentious at the time, but I think I managed to prove it conclusively way back then, that this from 29 miles away was also the mirror ball. So we've seen north to south and south to north, nearly 50 miles of flat from Hoylake all the way to Barrow, 47 miles. And we know that it's all flat, because if it's flat to the mirror ball there, and we know that it's flat from Barrow to the mirror ball, we can assume it's flat for the entire length. Just makes absolute sense. Hi, Mr. Nobody. You all right, buddy? Just thought I'd use this to help try and do a video that I'm producing on the other channel. It is just easier to show everything this way. I'll download this video and then I'll upload the high definition images properly so you can see it properly. I think these observations are conclusive, and what really irks me more than anything is the fact that you've got ball earthers that refute this and say that this isn't clear enough evidence. Well, how much evidence do you need? What more evidence can you produce? I mean, this is the most stunning image that I've captured. It's so clear. It's unequivocal. Unequivocally, all of the peninsula of Blackpool. I've explained conclusively why you don't see the illuminations, what everything is, all the attractions that are in it, even the fact that the sandcastle gets in the way here to stop you seeing the big one. And that there is the mirror ball. And that's why I did this observation yesterday. This is why I went along and did it, so that you could see the top of that mirror ball here. The top of it is 46 feet. It was 46 feet above the actual sea level when I took this image. The bottom of it, which is here, was 26 feet above the waterline. And you can see where the waterline is. It's way down here. We know it's flat. We can see it's flat. This entire peninsula is flat. It's a beautiful picture, I have to admit. You're right, I probably could produce an encyclopedia and people wouldn't be happy. That's true. That is true. What could you do though? I mean, you try your best. You try to say to them, look, at the end of the day, we know that it's flat, and I'm going out and I'm getting you these images, and I'm getting you images from, if it's flat over 19 miles, it's going to be flat over 29 miles. And I think that's been proved with the Hoylake videos and the Hoylake images. And it just shows that water doesn't curve, there's no bendy water. There is no bendy water anywhere. Show me bendy water, because I've just showed you no bendy water. That's complete flatness. What do you think, Mr. Nobody? Does it look flat to you? Do you know Blackpool? Yeah, I think you do know Blackpool, actually, don't you? Do you think that pretty much shows all of Blackpool? Would you be happy to say that's all of Blackpool? Hi, Sandra. You all right? Are you going to go into the mountains? I know it's a bit late in the year. Mountains. I'm going to Scotland in October, so maybe I can do some observations around there. What do you think? Sandra, did you watch my video yesterday? The one that I put up about the mirror ball? Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, it is pretty ABC, really. To be fair, I mean it's not rocket science. I do try to spoon feed people with the evidence. Perhaps I shouldn't. Perhaps I should be let them try and do their own work. But I want to try and spoon feed it them so that they can't be so thick, because it's so obvious. You know Blackpool, Sandra. You live in Blackpool, so would you agree that this image here shows all of the peninsula of Blackpool? I've been basically going on explaining why you can't see things like this part here, Sandra. I know you've just come in now, but the sandcastle blocks this area here. The sandcastle blocks that. These are actually part of the illuminations, and you can see them because there's a slight gap going back to here. Get rid of that. Going back to here in the line of sight, there's a small gap between the piers. You've got North Pier, Central Pier, and South Pier, but there's this area of land here that's unobstructed view. You can see that because the pier isn't getting in the way there. So the first time that the pier gets in the way is just before you get to the pleasure beach, which is here. So all this area is blocked out, and there's a sandcastle that's in the way. That's unobstructed view all the way to the mirror ball. But all this part of the peninsula here, why we're not seeing the illuminations, look at these big piers that come in the way. And they stop you seeing this roadside here and the illuminations from where I was. Lines of sight, and there's the Metropole, Sandra. You've seen it before. There's the Metropole. There's the Cenotaph. There's the Metropole. There's the curvy windows like in a castle, on the corners. Where's this? There's the Cenotaph. There's the lights that shine on it. You've got that, like the mirror ball now, where they shine lights onto this to light it up. So I'm going to go onto the image. I'm going to scroll over here and I'll look around. You see the curly parts of the Metropole windows. You see the Cenotaph here. Oh, only one watching. Everybody's gone. Well, this was basically, like I say, this video was only so that I could it would save me time to produce the video by simply doing it as a live hangout, so I can edit it, crop it back, put some new images in and stuff like that, and just use the real-time stuff that I can include in the proper video that I'll be putting together for this. So yes, you lost me. You did. What happened? Oh, you got no sound from me. So what did you think of the 5 meter in height tide experiment to show how much of the horizon was missing when you looked at the mirror ball when the tide came in at 5 meters? Did I explain that all right on yesterday's video? I think Anthony Riley's going to Hoy Lake tomorrow. I think he's going to be doing the revisiting the experiment, see how much you can see from Hoy Lake. So that should be interesting. See whether he gets anything. I think he wants me to go along actually and do some videoing with him. Do you want to come along, Sandra? Bring your P900. Yes, no, maybe. No, okay, fair enough. Right, well, that's what I wanted to do. Is basically all I wanted to do at the moment was put this together. Actually, I think I might just go back to the Metabunk and put 19 miles at 4 feet, which would mean refracted hidden of 152 feet and hidden 182 feet with no refraction. So that's what I should have seen from Barrow. Basically, 152 feet should have been hidden. Well, we know that the mirror ball, when I took the image, was only 46 feet above the horizon. So where's the 100 feet gone? 106 feet gone? And that's to the top of the mirror ball. In my opinion, that's all of the mirror ball. That's a full circle. The bottom of that mirror ball is 26 feet above the horizon, which is here. You can see the hard horizon because it's down here. So if we believe that we live on a ball, where the cursor is now is where the curve should have been. So we shouldn't have seen this mirror ball. This mirror ball should have been beyond the curve. And then when we scroll over here to the big one, around about here, all this below the the hand here should have been below the horizon. You shouldn't have seen it because the curve of the Earth should have eaten up all of this. It shouldn't have been able to have been seen. None of this would have been seen. None of the white tail would have been seen. 3/4 of the ice blast would have been chopped off. You wouldn't have seen any illuminations here. You wouldn't have seen these illuminations here. And here would have been chopped off too. You wouldn't have seen the cenotaph. And you wouldn't have seen most of the metropole. But yet we see it all clearly. Good morning, Kat. How are you? Does anyone want to jump on? Anyone want a link? Hi, Kat. Yeah, I'm just doing a live hangout so that I can use some of the footage to put a video together, because it's so much easier to, when I'm looking at Google Earth and I'm showing you it in real time, it's so much easier to do this way than actually putting in individual markers and timestamps on a video editing software that could take days to do this same thing. So I'm just going to use, I'm basically going to download this video and then be using some of the these parts, the moving parts, to use in the video. But basically I was just explaining the line of sight and why you don't see the illuminations, because you've got this pier that juts out and this pier that juts out. So this entire peninsula, this length from here to there, let's measure that actually. So from there to there, just over a mile. So that entire mile of stretch of illuminations is obscured because of the piers that are in the way. Clear that. And then over here, you get an area of 0.4 of a mile, which is clear line of sight, which is just before the big one and the ice blast, which matches in perfectly with what you would expect to see on this image. Because there we have, just before the ice blast, a section of the illuminations. And then this mile section here is blocked out by the piers. And we know that this is part of the piers anyway, because you can see the big wheel there, and I have that on a different image as well here. This one was from Stephen Cheatley, who allowed me to use his image. Here's the peninsula of Blackpool taken at dusk, and there's the wheel in the same location. Was I a mod on here? I can't remember. No, I made you a mod today, Mr. Nobody. And yep, you are now, Mr. Yep. Has the audio gone? No? I wouldn't have thought so. Can you still hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. Right, okay. If I go to YouTube, and then anti-rant here. This is this is the video that I put up yesterday. I'm just going to move it up here. So if you've not seen it yet, I'm just going to show you the size of the mirror ball, basically, which is why you can see it. Look at the size of this thing. This is me driving down the promenade towards it. Look at it. Sitting on the promenade. It's absolutely massive. It's 20 feet. The full circle part of the mirror ball is 20 feet. And can you see these? 1, 2, 3. There's actually 6 of these towers here that have projections that projects onto the actual mirror ball and lights it up like a Christmas tree. So these shine beams of light onto it and create a little show that goes on the ball with different lights and stuff that are going on, and they have music playing as well. But can you see how big this thing is? And then when I actually get out of the car and go up to it, which is about here, I reach up and I try to see how high I can reach up. So that's me fully extended my arm. We know that this part of this tower here is 10 feet tall, but just look at how big this ball is. And this is the important bit. When I say it's got an unobstructed view, where my cursor is now, where my cursor is right now is where I took the images from. That was in Barrow-in-Furness there. So all I was doing was looking across water till I got to this point here. And you can see how prominently this mirror ball. It's just, when I go back to here, I'm going to pause it. There we go. So can you see how it sits above the promenade? It's visible. It's there. It's above the promenade, and it's got a clear line of sight all the way to Barrow. And that's why we was able to see it, because there was nothing obstructing it. Look how big it is. Let me have a look for the mirror ball in Blackpool. Hang on. You'll hopefully see it. Sometimes it's not on and it's being lit up. Can you see how? Can you imagine how bright that would look? Sitting above the promenade, and you've got a clear line of sight looking at this thing. How much light that's throwing off. Now it's going a different color. These are the projections that are projecting these lights onto it and creating a show. Is it going through its red cycle? So imagine that, sitting on the promenade, 19 miles away, and that's what we're seeing on the images. Yeah, I think everyone's amicable today, Lottie. Don't see why they wouldn't be. Because all we're doing is just trying to find out whether we live on a ball or we live on a plane. And if we don't go out and do experiments, we'll never know. So if we go out and, you know, I show you an image that I caught from 19 miles away and it shows the mirror ball, and all I'm doing is presenting that evidence, I don't understand why you get flack for doing that, because all you're trying to say is, look, this is the image that I caught of the mirror ball from Barrow in Furness, which is here. This is the mirror ball here. That big ball that I've just been showing you now. This big circular ball here that was caught from 19 miles away. The top of it was 46 feet above the horizon. The lower part of it was 26 feet above the horizon. The curvature calculator says that the curve of the Earth should have taken it and eaten up all this here. All this under here shouldn't have been seen. So where my cursor is where the curve of the Earth says that that's how much we should have lost to the curve of the Earth. So here we are seeing the mirror ball. And here we are seeing the big one, and the ice blast, and the White Tower. And I've explained that the sandcastle blocked out the lower part of the big one here. So if I'm capturing the mirror ball at 46 feet to the top and 26 to the bottom, why, when Metabunk says that this is how much you should have lost to the curve? So my question is, why is this possible? Why is it that Stephen Sheatley can go along and he can just go on a random day and snap this image from the same location? Turned up, take an image, take a picture of it, and it shows pretty much the same thing that I captured at night. And this is at dusk. So all we're doing is just showing you evidence. And we're just asking you, why is it that we can see these things? Why can we see the mirror ball if we live on a curve? And also, I would like to refer back to a previous image that I took back in April from Hoylake. And here we have the tower. Here we have the big one. And here we have the mirror ball. Now, this is just one of probably around about 50 pictures that I took that caught the mirror ball on this particular day. So this is just one that I've just picked out at random. But as you can see, this is clearly the mirror ball, because not only is it in the right location, but I triangulated it at the time to prove beyond a doubt that it was in the exact location that it should have been for the mirror ball. So we know that this is the mirror ball. You can actually see, because part of it to one side is lit up and other times it's not. In fact, let me go and get some more images of this, actually, because this is let's see. So, I can't see. That's not good. There's more images that I can Hoylake. Liverpool night. Here we go. So here's all the images that I took from Hoylake back in April. So let's just open one. There we can see the mirror ball is there on that image. See the mirror ball's there. Just managed to capture it. Mirror ball's there. Mirror ball's there. This is a pretty good one. Because can you see how half of it's lit up and the back side of it isn't? And when I went back to this over here, can you see how the light show, sometimes it's half lit up, sometimes it's not lit up at all. This is the actual mirror ball itself. The lights are projecting on one side of it. the back side of it isn't lit up because that's facing the sea. So that's why you only see one side of it from here, as you can see. So if we're seeing the mirror ball from 19 miles away, and we're seeing the mirror ball from 29 miles, and we're looking across this entire peninsula. So we're basically looking across the North Sea from here. We're looking from Hoylake, which is here, to the So looking from Hoylake, which is there, to the mirror ball, which is there. You know, you're looking at 30 miles basically. And then we're also looking at it from Barrow-in-Furness to Hoylake. So I've got images that show that we're seeing the mirror ball completely over a 47-mile distance. It's complete flat. It's flat. If it's flat from there to there, from Hoylake to the mirror ball, and then it's also flat from Barrow-in-Furness to the mirror ball, we can assume that it's also flat from there to there. Makes absolute sense. And the only reason I'm picking the mirror ball out is because that should not be seen at all under any circumstances. Yeah, you can see it's a sphere. Absolutely, you know it's a sphere. Who said it wasn't a sphere? We can't see anything, or at least I can't. Lottie, if you want to go to the to this here, which is on the Google Drive, I'll put the link actually into chat. If you click that link, that'll take you to the Google Drive. And on the Google Drive, which is here, you can download the image and you can see for yourself. You can play around with it, mess around with it. You can check yourself that everything was in the correct location. And you basically can see the mirror ball here. You'll be able to see it probably better if you download it yourself. So going back to my video here, was this the one or was it another one? It will be, I don't know, it's not that one. Actually, going back to this other one here. Yeah, so going back to this one here, you know, when I said to you, oh, here's the projections that are projecting onto it, and the projections are projecting onto it. So if I was stood where my cursor is now, and I look directly at the mirror ball, so where these lights are here, if I go to Google Earth, I go to Google Earth and I scroll in and I show you the mirror ball where these lights are lighting it up. So here you can see the lights are actually here. There's 1, 2, 3 there and 1, 2, 3 there, and they produce a beam of light going from there onto the mirror ball, and there going onto the mirror ball there. So the back side of this side of the mirror ball won't get as much light thrown on it as one side of it. So one side of it will clearly be a little bit brighter than the other side. However, on the line of sight from the two, this is where the difference comes in. You've got the lights that are coming on here, so it's capturing most of this side. But when you're looking at it from Hoylake, which is over here, wherever it is, way over here. Looking at it from there, you'd only expect to see one side of it lit up anyway, because you're looking at it from a different angle, different line of sight. Is, you know, the light shining on it on this side, but this side clearly isn't getting as much. And that's why I like this entire peninsula of Blackpool, because you've got two great locations that you can go to. You've probably got a third actually, if we, it's just such a long way for me to go to North Wales, which for me would take probably a good 3 hours, 3.5 hours to drive it. You could go to here and you could look across it from this way. I have tried that actually. I did. I made the point of going one time. The problem that I had was everywhere I went, they had a bunch of wind farms in the way. So when I went here, they had a bunch of wind farms from there to there, just blocking my view. It was just frustrating that that's what happened. And then when it's this other location, which was here, again, they had wind farms that were going from there to there. And it just so happened that these wind farms were in a direct line between there and Blackpool, the Blackpool Tower. And the trouble with the P900 is that when you try to focus on something, when you've got some, because these wind farms light up at night time, they've got lights on them. So it's like a little bit of a light show that's going on. And your P900 gets drawn to those lights. So trying to look beyond them it's almost impossible. I mean, I spent all night trying to look past those wind farms. It was so frustrating. My battery died and everything. And I wasn't able to get the P900 to operate in the way I wanted it to, which was to go beyond these wind farms and look at this. I mean, I'm sure there must be a location along this peninsula that you can go to where the wind farms won't get in the way, but I didn't have time to find that. I went to Llandudno and I went to somewhere else around here. I can't remember what it was called now, but I went to Llandudno as well. And basically from those two locations that I went to, I wasn't able to get past the wind farms. So if anybody lives in this location, I do believe that somebody has actually taken some images of Blackpool Tower from here, which is about 34 miles away. And they caught quite a substantial part of Blackpool Tower from there. And that was, I think Anthony Riley told me that about 2 months ago. I think if he should be able to have that image. But the observations that I've been able to get to, which are easy enough for me, is from Hoylake and Barrow. But again, Barrow is a bit of a journey because you have to come all the way around this peninsula here and then come into it this way. So it might only be 19 miles from there to there, but it's a round trip of around about 80 miles or something to get to here. So it's a bit of a trek to get there. But this is why we do it. We do it because we're just exploring our environment. We're trying to, you know, we heard this, the earth is flat, and you think to yourself, don't be ridiculous. And then you go and you do these experiments and you find out that there's a possibility that it could well be flat, because how are you seeing the mirror ball from 19 miles away from one place, and then how are you seeing it from 29 miles away from another place? And it's not like you're looking across from here to there and then from there to there. You're looking from north to south, and then from south to north. So you're covering this entire region of land here, which is all flat, nearly 50 miles of near flatness. So then you've got to then ask yourself, well, that's quite a substantial part of the United Kingdom. So how much further is this going to go on? And there's a guy that I've been to, I mean, there's plenty of other guys, Flat Earth Max, or Flat Earth Max, I think he's called. And he's doing some observations of the wind. He's got a P900 and he's down this location here, and he's doing the wind farms down here, and he's seeing 20 miles away wind farms in their entirety. So he's seeing the flat from here. He's seeing the flat from here. And then you've got other people that are doing the same experiments throughout the UK, and we're finding that everywhere we look, it's flat. So if it's flat from here to here, right? And then it's flat from here to here, and it's flat from here to here, and then I'm seeing it flat from here to here, then what are we to make of that? You can't say that it's just atmospheric conditions on the days that we go, because every single day people are putting this evidence out. Every single day people are going out, doing an observation, uploading it onto YouTube, and it's showing that all around here is flat. You know, I mean, how much evidence do you need? I mean, as a community, we're producing evidence between us. I mean, we've got Antonio that's doing the stars and the sun, and we've got people like Dreads that are doing their live hangouts. They're doing great, getting a lot of people involved. And you got people like, I say, new people that have started up Flat Max UK, and you've got other people throughout the UK that are doing all these experiments. Sandra's doing some experiment. Everyone's getting the P900 out now, and everyone's seeing the same. It's all flat. So we just keep putting the evidence out. We keep building it and building it and building it. It's like building a wall, you know, and eventually the wall's going to become so high that you've got to say to yourself, well, there's so much evidence to show that the world's flat. There's so much evidence, and how much evidence is there that the world's a ball? Well, the only evidence we've got the world's a ball is some dodgy images, well, not even images, dodgy composite paintings of the Earth from NASA. That's it. But we've got all these people throughout the world, not just one person, but thousands of people that are going out and showing the flatness of the Earth. So when does the voice of thousands of people get pushed aside for the beliefs of one organization, NASA? You know, when does the credibility finally start to get taken down? When does people start believing in what we're showing them, which is proof? 19 miles, 29 miles, 30 miles, 40 miles, people doing 50-mile tests. You know, when is this going to be enough for the ballers to finally say one day, you know what, actually, we need to revisit our preconceived ideas of what we think we know, and actually start looking at this with a bit more of an open mind, because there's so much evidence that's coming out now that it cannot be ignored any longer. And how much evidence do they need? Exactly, how much evidence do they need? All we're doing, my evidence is just one small little block of evidence. That's all it is. I have a very small block of evidence. But put that with somebody else's evidence, and somebody else's evidence, and somebody else's, and eventually the evidence gets more of a concrete feel towards it, and suddenly the wall starts to get built. And right now we're at a point where we have a lot of evidence, but we don't have any way of producing it together as a community, because we don't have the infrastructure that places like NASA have, and we don't have the reach that NASA has. But in time, with all this evidence coming out, if we make enough noise, and maybe if we get together somehow as a community and are able to put these building blocks together and formulate a means of attack as a way of presenting this evidence to people that would normally refute it or just not even look at it, there has to be a way that we can get forward and present this evidence as one community, because at the moment we're divided as a community. We have the flatters that are fighting with the flatters. We have the potatoes fighting with the dodos, fighting with the bloody penguins. You know, I mean, it's, and then we've got people that don't like other channels. We've got arguments going off all over the place, but we're not going to get anywhere as a community if we don't pull together. And that's the thing. We have to pull together. We have some great channels out there, and it's not a popularity contest. At the end of the day, we've got organizations that are controlling our lives and sucking us dry and causing all these issues in the world, with everything from chemtrails, weather modifications, causing earthquakes, you name it. And they're there doing this, and we are allowing them to get away with it. Look at 9/11. 9/11, the biggest conspiracy of the lot, which is so plain to see that it was so incompetent as well. I mean, and yet we just talk about it, and it would seem that everybody's waking up to that, but everybody just kind of, oh well, that was a few years ago now, let's forget all about it. But why? Look at all the people that died over that. Look at the war in the Middle East that happened out of that. Look at all the people that have been forced from their homes, that have had their houses blown up, their children maimed. How many people have lost their lives in this war that was just created by bankers so that they could roll into the Middle East and take over. And that was all through 9/11. And we allowed this to happen. We all know 9/11 was bullshit. And yet we have this conspiracy. We know that the earth is flat. We know it's flat. And yet we're paying NASA, not me personally, because I'm not an American citizen, but the American citizens are paying NASA millions of dollars a day to produce some cartoons for them. And they don't care about people. You're right. They don't give a toss. They have an agenda that they're working to. The agenda is to get the population down to 500 million people, and their agenda is to basically control all the resources of the earth, whether it be water, food, oil, gas, technology. And we are sent to school from the ages of 5 until 18 now in the UK. And we have to learn and regurgitate the stuff that we are told. So we are told science, and we are told maths, and we're told this and that, and geography and history. And we are supposed to retain this information, be told it over and over again for years and years and years. Talk about brainwashing. Over and over, the same thing. Every week you go to history. Every week you go to history, you get told about World War I, told World War II. You get told about how evil the Nazis were and all this, that, and the other. You don't get told about the real reasons why, what happened with World War II. That isn't told you. You're just told one thing, and you are made to learn it, and you're brainwashed because you're told it so many times repetitively, and then you have to write it down to get the correct answers. And if you get the wrong answers, you have to stay behind after school and do extra work. And if you do the right answers and you answer it correctly, then you go home on time, you get a pat on the back, and you get a good job. And if you don't answer correctly and you give them the wrong answer and the wrong information, you get to maybe stay behind school, you don't pass your exams, you don't get a good job, you get thrown on the scrap heap. And that's what happens. So you are brainwashed from birth. So when you leave school at 18, you are mindful because you have been brainwashed since you was first able to speak. Basically, you've had the first 18 years of your life, you've been brainwashed, and then you turn on the telly. And I've noticed even more recently, actually, it seems that every set of adverts that come out, there's an advert that includes some kind of space activity, or a rocket going up in the air, or you know, there's a new TV program that's coming out which is new sci-fi, and it's all about, or a new film that's coming out which is new sci-fi, and there's always an advert on the telly about space. It doesn't matter whether it's an advert about a film that's coming up, or a documentary that's coming out, or a new series that's coming out, or something. There's always something to do with space. Even the cartoons nowadays, it's all spacemen. And it's all indoctrination. It's to make you think that this, you know, you're conditioned to believe in space. And it's got a lot worse. As I say, in the last 2 years, I've seen a massive difference in the amount of propaganda that they're putting out. And that's what it is. It is propaganda. And you get taught in school that the Germans would propaganda their own nation to become Nazis and fearsome fighters, and that's why they were so hard to defeat in World War II. But on the flip side of the coin, we suffer the same indoctrination and the same propaganda from birth, and we are taught that it's now acceptable for transgenders and people to, you know, for men to walk around in skirts and high heels, and for women to become more masculine, and same-sex marriages are great, and all this. You know, this is what we're taught, and it's all a way of dehumanizing us and turning us into just one gender, basically. And it's not how we're meant to be. Men are men, women are women. You know, it's just the way it is. You know, so to be told that this is normal, that you can dress up, a man can dress up as a woman, say that he's transgender, and then go into the ladies' swimming, baths or whatever, and go into the ladies' changing room, and change with the ladies in the ladies' changing room, because he's a transgendered woman, and he's allowed to do that. So when you have probably half a dozen ladies in there getting changed, and maybe some underage children in there getting changed to go swimming with the parents or something like that, and you get this guy that walks in, and nobody's allowed to say, hold on a minute, mate, what are you doing? Because he's got rights as a transgender, and he can just walk in and start undressing, get everything out, look around what he's doing. You could have any pervert go in there and do it. And I'm sure there are perverts that do that. And they hide behind this transgendered thing. And that to me isn't normal. And how does it feel for the ladies that are in there? How does it feel for the children that are having to change with this strange man that's in there? It's all wrong, but they say that it's right, and it can be done. And I know I'm going off on a tangent now, because this isn't really about flat Earth, but this is about the indoctrination that I'm talking about. You know, they still go on about 9/11, and they still say how it was perpetrated by these Saudi men who they conveniently found the passport to. And how they conveniently were able to trace everybody on board, even though some of these people that were supposed to have been on board have been found alive and well nowadays. Just like the Columbia spaceship, when that was supposed to have blown up, And the people on board, the 6 people on board, were all supposed to have died, including that lady teacher. Well, they found all them, haven't they? They're all alive and well. Some of them haven't even changed the names. Talk about rubbing your face in it. Challenger disaster, that was it. And yet they indoctrinate you to believe in all this, believe in space, believe the Earth's a ball. And then they use these fake attacks from people that probably don't give a shit about us. You know, like, look at the people in Afghanistan, right? I mean, there they were, leading their lives, doing their own thing, getting on with life, doing their own thing. The next thing, they've got the big bullies, Britain, America, NATO, just come in there, just take over the country, just kill everybody in sight, just take over the country. Same with Gaddafi when they went in after him. But Gaddafi was a good leader to his people. He just wanted to trade in gold, as opposed to the petrodollar. And as soon as that came out, he's a goner, and they just don't care. They rub it in your face because we can't do anything about it. That's the psyop, really. Yes, it is, and yes, they do. There is things we can do about it, to be fair. Of course there is. We can look at the architects and engineers for 9/11 truth. Okay, I don't know how far they've managed to get with their awareness program that they've been putting out about it, but they have done a tremendous amount of research and put the careers on the line to expose what actually happened on 9/11. So they have actually, yeah, Gaddafi was a good leader. But yes, he was. You should do some research into the life of the Libyan people before he took power, and when he took power, and when he actually died, and what they're actually living in now. To give you a quick rundown, I think they were earning around about $25 a month before Gaddafi took power. After he took power, they were earning $500 a month. That's how much their pay increased and how much he turned things around. If you they had free NHS, free, healthcare. If you lost your job, they paid you the same amount of money that you was earning when you was in a job. So if you was earning, say, let's say, for instance, in our terms of money, was earning $2,000 a month, he would pay you $2,000 a month in dollar money, basically. Now look at now look at the place now that they've killed him. It's a complete war zone. The wages have gone right back to the way they were before he took power. Everybody's poor. They've got no food. They've got no water. The factions are killing each other. At least when he was in power, it was a stable country. It was a powerful country. It was a strong country. The people were looked after. They had an education system. It was very Western. Now it's been thrown back to the Dark Ages. And yes, he did. He gave him 50,000 when they got married. He was a very, very good leader. Nelson Mandela couldn't praise him enough. Could not praise him enough. Nelson Mandela. And then you look at the war in Syria and what's going on there now. And Bashar al-Assad, I mean, that country was the most Western country in the region. And I mean, Western is in, like, they allowed the Muslims to interact with the Christians, to interact with the Jewish, to interact with the Catholics. They were all able to preach their own religion, walk around how they want, dress how they want. They had Western phones, the iPhones, you name it. They had everything. It was Western. It was a real multicultural, Western, progressive country. Now it's just a bombed out shithole. There's nothing left of the country. You've got the Islamic State that have moved in, and the other factions, the Al Qaeda and remnants and stuff like that, and God knows however many different factions that have come in, and they're taking over places, and they're bringing back Sharia law, and they're taking it back to the Dark Ages again. And you say that this is good. This isn't what. This is what they want. This is what the elites want. They don't want progressive countries. They don't want countries that are able to think for themselves, to create their own wealth in the world, because they want to control the wealth. That's what they want. And it's a big set. Like I say, the moon landings was clearly a hoax. I mean, come on. There's enough. I mean, NASA have lost all the original tapes and all the original schematics for the rockets and for the lunar landers and all that. They've lost everything. It's all been deleted and wiped. I mean, come on, the biggest achievement in mankind's history, and they lose the tapes. And this is an organization that's getting $50 million a day, but they lose the fucking tapes. Are you kidding me? I mean, how they haven't had. I mean, how did that get swept under the carpet? How come it's not been splashed all over the news that NASA lost the original tapes and they've lost the original schematics? How come this isn't generally known throughout the world? I mean, it's only through freedom of YouTube that we're able to contact people that can put this evidence out there for us to know, because the mainstream media don't let us know about it. The biggest achievement, I mean, think of the American people. This is how much they've been ripped off, yeah? All through the 1960s, when they were putting so much money into the space program, right? Billions and billions and billions upon billions, right? And to get people to go to the moon. So the people that are living in America now, some of them still will be alive, but their parents and their grandparents paid an astronomical amount of money to NASA in the 1960s through taxes to go to the moon. And how did NASA repay them? They repay them by destroying the fucking evidence and losing the evidence. And they're getting $50 million a day. How come there's no uproar about this? How come it's not splashed all over? Because if I'd been paying that sort of money to see the biggest achievement in mankind's history, what I would do is I would put it in a vault that was so secure that nobody could get in. That evidence would be there. And all those people that paid into that, have they been ripped off? How much have they been ripped off for that? All those people that put that money into, you think about it, if you're an American and your grandma contributed $20,000 towards the space program through taxes, through her hard work, and then NASA repaid them by saying, thanks for giving us the money, thanks for sending us to the moon, but we've not saved the schematics or anything at all to do with the lunar program. All evidence of it is gone. Thanks for that. Sorry, Lottie, are you an American? And yeah, P900, yeah. Sorry, Sandra, yeah. No, oh, you're Welsh, mate, right? Okay. So yeah. So how do you feel about that? Do you think that argument that I've just said is holds any kind of weight? That if your grandparent, if you was an American and your grandparent paid all that money into the space program to send people to the moon, you'd want them to at least save the evidence of that, and the documents and the schematics and everything else that went along with it. You'd think it would be of the highest priority to save that information, wouldn't you? So why is they lost it? Why has it disappeared? What does that tell you? I mean, from the evidence that we do have of the moon landings, it can be, I mean, with the new technology that's come out with all the different chroma keys and the lighting effects and things like that, they've been able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's all just CGI, not even CGI, just complete fakery. No, it wasn't the telemetric data that was lost, no. No, everything's lost. Every single thing. There isn't a single shred of anything left. They've lost everything. The original tapes, the original schematics, the original schematics for the actual lunar land. That's why they say they can't go back to the moon right now, is because they don't have the technology to do it. They had the technology to do it, as in the actual physical lunar lander and also the schematics that went with it, but they've lost it all now. So that's why they can't go back to the moon, because they don't have the technology, because they had the technology back in the 1960s, but it's been lost, as well as the original moon landing videos. Right, back in 1 minute, just hang on. And what do you think of them spraying this nailed in Houston after the hurricane rolled through, as apparently to kill the mosquitoes? How do you think the people of Houston feel being sprayed by that shit? And yet we say nothing. There's no uproar about it. And I think it's just a test to see how far they can get away with stuff and how much they can use this catastrophe as a way of spraying the population with this crap. Because everything's a test. Every single thing that they do is a test to see how far they can push things. Because they know that they've got the army that's behind them. And as long as the army and the generals are behind them, backing them up, they know that they can get away with almost anything. I mean, you must see the chemtrails, Lottie. Don't say that you don't get them in Cardiff. No, you don't have a vote. And to be fair, it doesn't matter who you vote for, because it doesn't matter the same people control everybody. So the leader of the Conservatives and the leader of the Labour and everybody you can think of, they're all just answerable to the same person or group of people that are above them. They still do the same thing. It's all just a game. Wouldn't the chemtrails only spray in places where no elites reside? I don't know if are the elites chemtrailing each other? It used to say the elites don't have some kind of antidote towards this chemtrailing. I mean, you should look into the actual patents of the chemtrails and what they actually do and what they can actually do with it. Everything to do with the weather modification and what does that mean? Tavistock-ian. Let me search that. Tavistock-ian view of leadership. Brainwashing, right, okay, social engineering the masses. Okay, yeah, it is, in that case. It's all a way of brainwashing everybody. When I used to watch David Icke back in the day, he was the guy that first put me on to the fact that 9/11 was an inside job. And then obviously, after watching him for a while, I started exploring my ulterior news. And that's when I came to the conclusion of the chemtrails and the flat earth and everything like that. And David Icke was the one that first started talking, and making sense about the fact that schools isn't schooling, it's indoctrination. And like you just said about the Tavistock Institute, the social engineering and the mind control, it all starts in school. How do you know there isn't an antidote? We know that they're making tunnels under the Rocky Mountains. We know that's beyond proved, that the elites have tunnels that stretch for hundreds of miles that are fully stocked with food and water and weapons, ready for the elites to flee when anything's going to, get pretty nasty for them, or nasty for us, should I say. So why wouldn't it make sense that they have some kind of antidote towards these chemtrails? Why wouldn't it make sense for that? If they're spending all this money on chemtrailing and spending all this money on building these tunnels, why wouldn't they look after their own self-interest and have an antidote to the chemtrails? Makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, exactly. They won't poison us with anything that they can't cure. Exactly. I wouldn't have thought so, Lottie. I wouldn't have thought there'd be millions of family members on the elites. Absolutely not. There might only be a couple of hundred, perhaps, maybe even just a few thousand. When we're talking about the elites, we're probably talking about maybe 5 or 6 families in total, and they're close acquaintances. You know, you wouldn't be talking millions. If there was millions, there'd be too many mouths that can go flapping the gums. They need to keep it in a very tight circle. Those at the top are really at the top for a reason. And you don't think that these people that are spraying the chemtrails, that they're, you know, that they're probably people that are been part of the Royal Air Force, for instance, let's say that, but they have either had psychological problems, or they're a kind of narcissist, or they are people that just basically just don't give a shit, because there are people like that. There are people that are psychotic, and they will employ them people to do the spraying because they just don't give a shit. And there are people that are like that. There might be 1 in 100 people that are actually psychotic, and they can turn that to the, you know, train them to be a pilot and send them out to do the chemtrailing because they don't care. They're on a good earner. They're doing the job, and they're a bit psycho, so they don't have empathy. And they're the people that will be spraying. You know, I used to fly when I was a kid. I was in the Air Training Corps. I've flown bulldogs, chipmunks, gliders. I've done all the aerobatics in it and everything like that. But if I'd kept a career in that and become a fully fledged pilot, there is no way in a million years that if somebody offered me £250,000 a year or something to go and spray chemtrails throughout throughout England every day as my job, that I would do that in good conscience, because I wouldn't be that type of person that could be manipulated and go to bed at night sleeping well knowing that I'd sprayed people with these chemicals, because that wouldn't be something that I could physically do, even though I was a pilot. So there could be 100 people out there, like I say, 100 different pilots in the RAF, and they will pick the ones that they know are psychologically, you know, dysfunctional, you know, ones that they can manipulate to do their bidding for them. And I also don't think that the moon landing people, I don't think that the actual flight controllers in NASA, I don't think they were in on it. I think they were all part of the people that had the wool pulled over their own eyes. They actually thought that they were actually partaking in the greatest achievement in humankind's history when they were sending people to the moon, and they're getting all this data back saying that the spaceship is 300 miles away from the moon and all this, and they had all this data coming in, but it was all just bullshit. They were part of the people that were hoaxed. The only people that really needed to know about it was the people that were doing the videoing of it, and the people at the camera crew that had done the fake moon landing, you know, when they're on the moon's surface, and the actual astronauts themselves. So they could have probably got away with hoaxing the moon landing with under 50 people. No, Ranty, I think that's 100 pilots plus wives, kids, family, friends. They won't employ anybody with wives, kids, family and friends. Like I said, you're in the RAF, you've got somebody that's a bit psychotic, that's somebody that's a screw loose. You know, the shadow government comes in, they ask them to come with them, they sit them down, a bit like the Bourne Identity. and they give them you know, a few months of brainwashing just to finish them off, and suddenly they're just a completely different person. They're already psychotic anyway, so they won't on sociopaths or whatever, so they won't actually care what they're doing. And secondly, they won't have family, they won't have friends. They'll pick people that don't have family. They'll pick people that don't socialize very well with people, and they're the type of people that they'll employ. So you're thinking you're thinking about normal people, and normal people with friends, and normal people with jobs, and normal people with family. But there are plenty of people out there that are orphans, that have no family. There are plenty of people out there that don't socialize very well. And to be fair, the orphans and stuff, they quite often bounced around from you know, one family to another when they're growing up. So they're going to be a bit psychologically damaged anyway. Not all of them, don't get me wrong. Most of them will probably grow up fine, but there are some people that will grow up a little bit differently. And it's just the nature of their environment, and they're the people that they will target. They target those people to get them to do these acts. And I also believe there's these type of people that have been brainwashed as children or infants even, and they might have trigger words that are put into the brains, and when they hear a certain sentence of words, it gets them to go and do something. So they could hear a sentence that nobody would generally say it to them in the real world, but it would be something that would trigger them to go off and buy a gun somewhere and go and kill 20 kids in a school. Not that that ever happens, but just saying, they can get them to do stuff. Mind control. Was it MK Ultra? No, I wouldn't say I'm very knowledgeable about a secret and evil act. I just think that there's a lot of truth that comes out in Hollywood movies. So you can watch these movies and you can see that they are dropping hints all over the place about what's actually really going on in the world. I watched what was that program? Was it The Minority Report? I watched a film last night, The Minority Report, and there was elements in that, like the shadow secret people that manipulate the world into the way that it's supposed to go. You know, that you have a destiny, and this destiny will happen whether you like it or you don't like it. And there's somebody up there that decides all this. You know, somebody decides what's going to happen in the world, and there are people that make sure that that's how the world goes. And you know, like it was Matt Damon that was supposed to be the president of the United States, and he was a senator at the time, and he wanted to do something. He wanted to have a relationship with this girl, and that could change his career path, which would mean that he wouldn't end up being president. And they wanted him to be president. It was kind of like the way when you watch the film back and you look at it with an open mind as to how we view the elites nowadays and what's going on in the world, you can see so many links to the two, that you just know that what they're telling you in Hollywood is that they're telling it you, but they're not telling it you. They're kind of laughing at you with it, because they're saying, you know, this is what's going on and this is the truth, and we're going to put it to you in a way that we can laugh about it afterwards. Anyway, I better go and make some Sunday lunch, I think. I'll put chicken roast dinner in, get that on the go. So, thanks for stopping by anyway. I just thought I would do a quick hangout. I highly doubt if this Evil Corruption exists, if they're going to put it in Movies Ranty. That would be insanely dumb for them to do. Why would it not? Why would it? I don't see how it would. If you go back into the 1930s, 1940s, Hollywood, was it 90-odd% of Hollywood was owned by the Jews? You know, and when I say the Jews, I mean, you know, the Jewish kind of mafia back then. And it still is today. So you do have the elites, you have these families that run the newspapers, they run news agencies, the CNN, all that, you know, it's all owned by the same people and it's all run by the same people. And if you watch the BBC News and then you watch CNN News and you watch Sky News, they all say the same thing in the same order. So let's say, for instance, they said, a 9.8 earthquake hit Mexico City today, and 600 people are dead, and there's a tsunami warning, blah, 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 blah. And it's said in that order, and it's said exactly that same way. So BBC News say that on the dot of 9 o'clock at night. And then you go to Sky News, and dead on 9 o'clock at night, they say exactly the same thing in the same order, with the same sentences, the same wording, exactly word for word. Nothing changes. It's the same stuff. Doesn't matter which channel you watch, whether you watch CNN, whether you watch any of those channels, Sky News, BBC News, ITV News, it's all the same. It's the same wording, word for word. It's like they're all they're using the same auto cue. They're looking at the same screen, saying the same stuff. And they're supposed to be independent, they're supposed to be fighting against each other for ratings. And it's like ITV News against BBC News against Sky News, who's the best? Where's the ratings? Well, if they're all saying the same thing in exactly the same order, in the exact same sentence, the same phrases, the same word, and they're getting the same information from the same people. So they are spreading the same exact wording, word for word, that they want the entire world to hear at the same time. So at 9 o'clock at night, on the dot, the next half an hour of news that all comes out from any news organization is the same thing. Doesn't matter who it is. Yeah, they do. The Jesuits, you're right, the Jesuits do run the media, Hollywood, the news organizations, everything. Everything that you watch on the telly, everything that you hear on the radio, it's all controlled. And it's all to have an agenda. And if they're all saying the same thing to you, it's dumbing you down and it's mind controlling you. And the only way that you get the real information is when you come onto the alternative news and you find out a different narrative to what the one that the Jesuits want you to believe in. So the narrative of the alternate news is, okay, 9/11 was an inside job. Chemtrails are real. The Earth is flat. This is the alternative news. Whereas mainstream news and the Jesuit news and Hollywood and ITV News and BBC News and the newspapers say to you the Earth is a ball. 9/11 was done by some terrorists living out of a cave. Chemtrails are just contrails. And it's which one you want to believe. So when you're looking for evidence of stuff and you look for the evidence that the mainstream throw at you for the ball Earth, and they throw you an image of Earth that's a composite or a drawing or a picture or anything like that. You know, there's no real images of the Earth from space. And then you say, and then you get 1,000 people that are putting evidence out there that says the world's flat, and they're proving it day after day, bringing out more evidence, more evidence. So when on the ball side of thing, you've only got NASA, and you've got thousands of individual people throughout the world. Doesn't matter, you know, Russia, Germany, Chinese, Indian, American, British, they're all doing it now. They're all seeing the same thing worldwide, and they're all speaking in one voice and saying the Earth is flat, and they're all doing their own evidence and showing it. So when the community, as it is, keeps getting bigger and larger, and the evidence keeps stacking up, how long before the ballers are going to say, hang about, wait a minute, maybe we should take this a little bit more seriously and open our minds a little bit and just give into that for just a moment, and just look into it and think, actually, let's just for 1 second believe that the Earth is flat and look at the evidence with an open mind. Because that's all it needs, is an open mind. If you haven't got an open mind, you're going to believe what the mainstream tell you and what the elites want you to know. And if you look at the alternate news, I mean, to be fair, I mean, even the ballers, they're halfway there. They're on these channels anyway, because they're already looking at the alternative media, and they're either doing it through a way of trying to express their own interest in this stuff, or they're just complete shills, because there's no way that you can have all this evidence thrown at you and keep denying it. Ranty, you know that flat Earth trends are dying out rapidly, right? No, completely wrong. That is the most ridiculous, retarded thing I think you've said in this entire session, to be fair, because it's not dying out at all. Trends aren't dying out at all. It's a growing, I mean, it's getting into the mainstream media now. And we know, if we know anything about media and how it works, is that any kind of advertisement is, or any kind of propaganda, if you could say it that way, whether it's in the newspapers or anything, is good for flat Earth. So when you've got mainstream media that are reporting on flat Earth, whether it's jokingly, taking the piss, or anything like that, it's going to bring more people to the table. It's going to bring more people to look into it and go, I want to see what those idiots are talking about, just for the hell of it. And then they actually look at it and they think, oh, fucking hell, they've got a point. And then they start researching it. The viewing numbers, I don't believe a thing that YouTube says. Lottie, you're saying to me that the people that control everything, the people that are trying to dumb down the nation, the people that are taking away the advertising money from these alternative media sites, everything from Alex Jones, which is just a paid shill anyway, but let's just bring him into the argument anyway. You've got Mark Dash, you've got Richie from Boston, you've got all the big channels, you've got all these channels that are being censored financially by YouTube, that are taking the subscriptions money, not subscription money, but the advertising money away from them, because they're saying that the content isn't suitable for their advertisers. So where in the past, where you had people that were probably making a decent living out of it, that could afford to then go out and do a lot more research and invest a lot more time into the flat Earth, they're now having that funding cut from them completely through YouTube. And you're telling me that you've got to believe in YouTube viewing trends because YouTube says to you that the flat Earth is dying? You're going to believe that because their trends show you that it's dying? Yet you've got channels that are having the subscriptions lowered and messed around with all the time. You're having the money stopped from all these alternative media sites. And you don't see this as a coincidence that the same people that are running this, that are trying to snuff out the alternative media, are the ones that are telling you that flat Earth is dying, because I don't see it dying. I see it growing. And I see a lot more content people going out with the buying P900s and putting evidence out there. For instance, Sandra, she's just gone to Morrison's now, like you said, but Sandra, she went out and bought a P900 camera. Anthony Riley, He didn't have a P900 camera when I met him. He bought a P900 camera a few weeks ago. So I'm sure he'll be putting more evidence out there. There's a guy from down south. What's he called? Flat Earth Max. He bought a P900 a few months ago. He started to put his own flat Earth truth out with his P900 evidence. Now, all these people and channels that are putting evidence out there, the P900 stuff and the video footage and looking into flat Earth, there's more content creators popping up all the time. These new content creators that are putting the evidence up, whether they've only got 200 subscribers or 300 subscribers, that is still 300 people that are being fed information about flat Earth. And some of them will probably want to go out and buy a P900 and check it for themselves too. So if there's more content creators out there, you can't tell me that viewing figures have dropped. Because in the past, there might have only been 100 content creators. Now there could be 200 content creators that are putting twice as much evidence out there for flat Earth. So how can numbers be going down? I don't think that's true. I think it's wrong. I think YouTube are wrong. I think they are doing it on purpose. I think the numbers are being suppressed. I think they're suppressing it to try and demoralize the flat Earth community. I think they're penalizing people that monetize their accounts by not allowing them to advertise and make a bit of an income off of it. And what you don't understand, I don't think a lot of the ballers understand, is when they turn around and say to people, "Oh well, your account's earning money. You're making money off flat Earth." Really? There's no money to be earned on flat Earth. I've had my channel for, in total, 4 years, not this one. I had a channel before that too. And in 4 years, I first monetized my account 4 years ago when I first made my channel about chemtrails. And in that entire time, I have made £74 in 4 years. That's how much money I've made flat earthing and chemtrailing. Now, I bought a P900 camera and tripod and everything else for like 500 quid. I've spent probably around about 3 grand in petrol traveling all over the country trying to get these observations. I've spent thousands of hours putting videos together. And I've made like 74 quid in 4 years. So when you say that you're doing it for the money, that's just, that to me is kind of like a slap in the face. Because do you know, when I got to 60 quid, you're not allowed to withdraw your money until you get to 60 quid. Got 60 quid, took it out, took the missus for a meal. That was why I went. Took her out, took her for a meal, said, "You know what, 3 years of doing this, and I'm taking you for a meal to celebrate." And that's what I got out of. That's what I've got monetized in my account. There's no money in flat Earth. People that do flat Earth do it for the love of flat Earth and to do it to awaken people to the stuff that's going on, because they're not getting paid. There is no money in flat Earth. If you wanted to, if I dedicated my time to doing something different, let's say I wanted to do a footballing channel. Let's say I just wanted to do a footballing channel, for instance, and I dedicate the same amount of time as I'm doing in flat Earth as I did to doing a football channel. Within probably a couple of months, I could probably have 10,000 subscribers, and I could probably be earning a good income, because YouTube would be happy to allow advertising on my football stuff, and I'd probably be earning probably 300 or 400 quid every month. But I'm not that type of person, because that isn't what interests me. What interests me is trying to awaken people to the truth. It's not all about money. It's about doing this for the people, and we do it for the people. And when we get slack, we get stick for it, and we get people telling us with this and with that, and we're shills and with this, and we're forging the evidence. Why would we go to this extent? Why would we do it? Why would we dedicate hours and hours every day and hours every week and financially lose money day after day after day doing this stuff, Just to what? For what reason? Why would we do this? If you're accusing people of poisoning the world, stealing money, lying, stealing, and cheating the people, are you surprised advertisers don't want any part of that? Lottie, what you're forgetting is it's the other way around. We're not poisoning the world. We're trying to unpoison the world. We don't steal money. The governments steal money. They steal land. They're the ones that lie. They're the ones that tell us that 9/11 was done by some terrorists living out of a cave. They're the ones that tell us that they went to the moon and put people on there. Cheating people. Cheating people? NASA was the ones that took billions and billions in the 1960s to send people to the moon, and then conveniently lost all the tapes and evidence and schematics of everything. So all the people that paid into that, all the people that paid all that money in taxes to send these people to the goddamn moon got ripped off to fuck because there's nothing left. There's no evidence of anything. The biggest achievement in the world ever, and they lost the evidence. And you know why? It's not us that are unadvertiser friendly. We should be advertiser friendly, because what we are doing is we are showing the world in its true entirety. We are showing that we can see objects in the distance that we shouldn't be able to see on a ball. We are seeing the mirror ball from 29 miles away. We are seeing the mirror ball from 19 miles away. Combined, the distance of over 50 miles over a peninsula. Where is the curve? We are just showing the truth. We're not hiding anything. We're not faking anything. We've just got the dedication to go out, take the camera out, take an image of Blackpool from certain distances away, and show you the evidence that the camera captured. That's what we're doing. We're not hiding anything. We're not making anything up. We're not lying. We're not cheating, and we're not stealing. All we're doing is just going along and taking an image of something and showing you the image and trying to say to you, come up with an explanation that explains this. And never mind that refracted hidden crap, because that just doesn't wash. Because the Metabunk even says that it's 350 foot beyond the curve, but the mirror ball itself is like 40 feet above the actual water. There's no amount of refracted hidden that could compensate for that at all. Absolute bullshit. So when you take that, when you actually understand that simple concept, that you can't iron out a curve, and we're looking at complete flat, then it comes down to the simple point of, well, who do you believe? Do you believe NASA that says we live on a ball? Or do you believe these thousands of people that are showing the same thing worldwide? Flat everywhere. Everything's flat, flat, flat. Because all we're doing is just showing you the evidence. We're not manipulating it. We're not hiding. We're not NASA and showing you a cartoony picture of Earth and saying that's the Earth. No, we're showing you the real footage, the real P900 footage, real concrete evidence. That's what we're doing. We're not hiding anything. We're not trying to steal and lie to you. We're not trying to be bullshitters. Well, at least I'm not. Millions of smart scientists. Where did you lose this from, Lottie? Seriously, I mean, when I said to you before, right, that we're indoctrinated into science, and we're indoctrinated from birth up to being 18, and probably the scientists are indoctrinated up until they're probably, 25, 26, when they actually get their, not just the full honours degree, but the master's degree. So you say all these millions of smart scientists. Well, they're all trained by the same people to believe the smart science. And would it matter if they were unemployed weed heads, Lottie? Would it really matter if they were unemployed weed heads? What does that matter? If they go out and they get an image of Blackpool from 30 miles away, does it matter whether they're a weed head or a scientist? Does it make any difference? How does that affect the P900 camera? How does that affect their evidence? What, are you going to have a go at them because they might have been stoned when they took an image at 29, 30 miles away? You're going to say that the camera was somehow stoned and fucked up the image? Because if the camera and the equipment is working properly, it doesn't matter which weed head or scientist is taking the picture. Because the evidence is just the evidence. You know, and back in the day, like I said, going back here, the mirror ball from almost 30 miles away from Hoylake, the mirror ball here, sitting proudly on the promenade, unobstructed view from Hoylake all the way to Blackpool, from nearly 30 miles away. And from the other side, from the other peninsula, from Barrow, looking at Blackpool, again, the mirror ball here, sitting proudly above the horizon in the exact spot that it was meant to be. Right there. So all we're doing is saying, this is the image that we took. We went to Barrow, took this image. We are now presenting you this image of Blackpool from Barrow, 19 miles away. Right? That's what we're doing. How are we lying? How are we stealing? How are we cheating? How is this fraudulent in any way? All we're doing is saying, there's the mirror ball, which we've identified. How is it that is able to be seen on a ball Earth? How can you see that on a ball Earth? It's impossible, because the curvature of the Earth means that all this should be hidden where the cursor is here. But there's the mirror ball. So how can we see it? How are we forging? How are we frauding anybody? By simply asking questions. By saying that we've gone out and we've done this observation and we are seeing this. This image is what was captured from 19 miles away. This is the image. Where's the lie in this? Where's the cheating and stealing in it? There's no cheating and there's no stealing. It's just us producing evidence. That's all it is. And we're asking you the question, where on your ball Earth does it say that we should not be seeing this? Where's the evidence for it? Where's the evidence that disproves this? Tell me how a ball Earth becomes flat when you can see that distance. Right, reread my comment for further clarification. In the world, stealing money, lying and stealing and cheating the people. Are you surprised I've said that? Right, okay. Well, we are accusing them. We are accusing them of poisoning the world because they are. We have evidence of it. We have evidence of them stealing money. Look at the missing money that went before 9/11. They announced it the day before. Was it something ridiculous, like $2 trillion or something that had gone missing in a black hole, disappeared somewhere? And funnily enough, the one place in the Pentagon where they had all the documentation for all this lost money, happened to be the place where the plane hit the following day. You fucking kidding me? So when I say yes, they're stealing money, yes, they're stealing money. Of course they're stealing money. They knew 9/11 was going to happen. They announced it the day before that all these trillions of money had disappeared, and then they blew the fucking evidence up. Lying, of course they've lied. 9/11. What do you mean? If we're accusing people of this, we don't have to accuse them because it's it's the truth. It's the truth. Exactly, that shit is not ad friendly. If you say so, Lottie. If you say so. But it's the truth. It's not ad friendly. Do you know why? Because the advertisers and the people behind the advertisements and the ones with the money are sucking up to the people that are perpetrating all this kind of stuff, that are the ones going around taking on wars in different countries, killing people, blowing them up, lying to the people, stealing the money. So we're just exposing that. We're exposing the truth. And the reason it's not ad friendly is because they don't want to pay us the money for exposing their research, for doing the research and exposing their shortcomings and bringing it to the attention of the world. So if you can't see that those two things go in hand, that the people that are doing the ads and the people that are saying who can have the ads are the same people that are starving the people that don't want, that are trying to expose this stuff and to try and change the world for the better. I mean, we could get along. We could all get along. I would guarantee that if there was no New World Order and there was no elites behind everything, if there was no elites, if there was literally no elites, that the English, Indians, Chinese, Japanese, you name it, Afghanese, Libyans, Syrians, French, we'd all get on brilliantly. We would all get on fantastically. We wouldn't fight each other. Sure, we'd have a fight in a pub or something, you know, you'd have a few drinks, you'd have a few beers down your neck, and you might have a scuffle with somebody, but there'd be no wars. There'd be no need for it. There'd be nobody pulling the strings. There'd be nobody going out of the way to want to invade another country. There'd be nobody wanting to stir up racial hatred and drive this kind of belief that everybody should hate one another, and like saying that there's so much racial hatred in the world. Well, there isn't. There isn't. If you left people alone, blacks and whites and yellows would all get on perfectly well. There would be no issues whatsoever. Nobody would fight with each other. The color of the skin wouldn't even come into it. It wouldn't happen. It's just that every day on the media, we get race hate, and it's thrown in our face every single day. And it's designed to stir up communities to have bad feelings towards other communities, the Hispanics against the blacks against the whites. And it's all designed to do that. If there was no news reporting every single day that there's been a racial attack, a white policeman has attacked a black man, or a black man's attacked a white man, if there was none of reporting of this, right, and there was no reporting of this for the next 2 years, there'd be none of it anyway, because it would just go out of the consciousness. Because people would just look at people for being people. They wouldn't look at people for the color of the skin, and they wouldn't get wound up, and the communities wouldn't get so aggressive about the wrong color of the skin. You've got, well, I'm white and I'm proud to be white, and I'm black and I'm proud to be black. There'd be none of that. It'd just be white or black, doesn't matter, just people. But we're told that we hate each other. We're told that the blacks hate the whites. We're told that the whites hate the blacks. We're continually reminded that there's always this race hate going on. Is it any wonder that there's always disagreements and fighting? That's how they keep That's how they keep things ticking over. They don't want us to come together as communities. They want to keep us divided. Divided we're weak, divided that we can be conquered. They don't want people to get along. They don't want the Chinese to get along with the Japanese. They don't want Syria to be westernized. That's why they've blown it up. They don't want blacks getting along with whites. They don't want Hispanics getting on with whites. That's why they create communities of people. That's why they've created this migration wave from the Middle East that's coming over to the UK and to places like Germany. I mean, Germany was a very strong country, still is, in respect that their heritage of the German people is very strong. You know, the very strong, very powerful belief in the German culture. So when Angela Merkel let over 1 million of them in, of course, it's caused an awful lot of problems there. And the more they report about it, the more they start to hate each other. Whereas before, they probably didn't give a shit about people living in Syria or people living in the Middle East. They probably didn't bat an eyelid. But when they bring them in en masse and they create communities, and the communities start banding together in their local, look in Britain. There's places in Britain you can go to. You've got white communities, you've got black communities. You go to places like Birmingham, and it's like 90% blacks, and they all live in the same place. They don't integrate as much as they should do. But then you go to places like London, and London is very multicultural. You've got everybody living with everybody, and everyone gets on fantastically well. You don't have any fights, any arguments. You've got every kind of country you can believe that live in London. It's like a utopia of the world, how it should be, London, because it is so multicultural. And everybody looks at, they don't look at somebody and say, oh, you're Chinese. They just say, oh, that's Wang, or whatever he's called. That's Wang there. Oh yeah, it doesn't come into their subconscious that they're thinking he's Chinese. They just have a name for the person. They don't look at the colour of the skin or anything like that. But then you've got other parts of the country that are like say, like Birmingham and stuff, and you've got the black communities, and you go like to places like Blackburn, and you've got the you've got the Indian communities that are there, and they all stay together. They don't really socialise. They keep in the same little groups of people. You know, and that's the way they like it, because they like to have division. They like to have no-go areas. You know, white people can't go walking in the black communities, and they can't go walking in the, like, you know, a bit like the Crips and the whatever the other ones were called. Yeah, whatever. But you're not allowed to wear red in the black areas and blue in the red areas or whatever. So, you know, things like that. You know, so like, you know, whites just don't go walking around parts of Blackburn or Burnley, because, you know, there's a lot of Asians there, and the Asians are brought up to not like or socialize much with the whites, and they look down on us. It's all wrong, because if we weren't I mean, if you look at the reporting in the local papers and stuff as well, they'll have if there's any kind of race hate that goes on, it's on the front page, and it's brought up every day, so that it's always in your consciousness to believe that there's this hate going on all the time. But take away the news, take away the newspapers for 2 years, and everyone will get along fine. Right, well, I'm off. I'm going to make some dinner, chicken dinner, roast potatoes. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.